A famous Hollywood actor just told everyone a big secret. Before all the movie stars came into his life, there was someone special who stole his heart. Watch this video to the end to learn why he stayed quiet for so long and why Brad Pitt at 60 finally says she was the love of his life. Before there was Angelina, before Jennifer, before the weddings, before everyone knew his name, there was someone else. Someone whose name was never in magazines. She came before the fancy clothes people picked out for him. Before the big houses, before Hollywood tried to tell him who he was, way before he was in the news, back when he was just Brad. And she was the only one who really knew him that way. They met before he had his own place to live. When he was sleeping on friends' couches and sharing cheap meals, before he tried out for movies, before his picture was on big signs, before people started paying attention. There was no fame to chase, no fake image to keep up. Just a boy and a girl walking around quiet parts of a city that didn't notice either of them yet. She wasn't famous at all. She wasn't even trying to be. And maybe that's why she got closer to Brad than anyone ever would again. She knew his real laugh when he wasn't acting. She knew what scared him, not just what he wanted. She saw the worried part of him. The part that wasn't sure about everything. And then everything changed when he got a phone call. The one movie role. The one moment that changes a whole life. It wasn't really a breakup. Not the official kind. There wasn't a big fight. No last talk. Just space between them, quiet, a change. He didn't call. She didn't wait around. The movie business ate him up. And she disappeared like a cloud in the sky. What happened after that is something everyone knows. The rise to the top, the icon, the heartbreaker. He had 32 relationships that everyone knew about. They are not just rumors like other celebrities have. All of these really happened. These relationships were with other actors, models, and movie makers. It became like a pattern. Some people said it was his type. Others said it was just a habit. But whatever it was, none of them seemed to stick around. While he was dating whoever he wanted, he had everything. Fame, power, influence, and sometimes he seemed really happy with Juliet, with Gwyneth, with Jen, with Angie. They were all real in their own way. But every time things ended, the same question was left hanging. Why does he keep walking away from them? What happened was the moment Pitt's name started to mean something, the attention never stopped. Camera people outside restaurants, casting agents talking behind his back, women trying to reach him through friends, movie premieres, and scripts. Some stars fall into love stories. Pitt seemed to fall into these traps. So when did it all start? It all started with Juliette Lewis. She was the first one. He was older. She was younger. But it worked for a while at least. They lived fast. Rebelled harder. It wasn't love. It was like a crash. She said he was wild. He said she saved him from himself. But what neither said out loud was that their whole relationship was built to distract them. And when it stopped working, it ended cold. Then came Gwyneth. The change was surprising. He went from denim jackets to fancy suits, from cheap motel passion to expensive hotels. They looked perfect together. But behind the cameras, he was getting smaller. He had changed into who he thought she wanted. He cut his hair to match hers. He wore what she wore. He started copying the way she talked. People called it cute, but those close to him said it was something else. A man without direction trying to become whoever would love him back. Then they announced something that shocked everyone. They were going to get engaged. And this news came fast. But the news of their breakup came even faster. There was no cheating, no scandal, just a quiet split. Gwyneth later said it was one of the most heartbreaking breakups of her life. But Brad didn't say a word, just moved on, just like he always did. After her, it was Jennifer's turn. She was America's sweetheart, Brad's normal life. For the first time, it seemed like he wanted things calm. And maybe he did. But what he didn't expect was how heavy that piece would feel. He had to give everything to her. So the two got married. But the problem is marriage didn't quiet the noise in his head. It made it louder. And no matter how much they smiled at fancy events, something was changing again. Not a scandal, something worse. It was not caring anymore. While social media showed their life as a fairy tale, Brad was looking somewhere else. And that's when Angelina Jolie happened. The world remembers it as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But what happened off camera was way more dangerous. She was wild in a way Gwyneth wasn't. She was raw in a way Jennifer couldn't be. And for Brad, she was exactly the kind of chaos he'd been holding back. Their connection wasn't soft. It was like an explosion, and he couldn't resist it. These two got into the hottest affair. And when the rumors exploded, Brad said nothing. When Jennifer cried on live TV, he stayed quiet. Because in his mind, the choice had already been made. He wasn't walking toward love. He was running from a stillness that scared him. And with Angelina, he didn't have to slow down. They got together and their years together were legendary and dangerous. They had children. They did great humanitarian work. Their wedding shocked everyone with how simple and fast it was. And then a fire that burned them both up. Brad would later admit that he started drinking more, that he stopped knowing himself, that one night something happened that would change everything. This incident made him lose custody because he lost control. And for the first time, he almost lost everything and felt sorry for his actions. But even then, he didn't stop. In the later years of his life, the women didn't disappear. They multiplied. Models, artists, actresses. Some were confirmed, some denied. All had a pattern. All were younger. All were temporary. It wasn't a man looking for companionship. It was a man staying busy so he didn't have to look back. This man had 32 relationships everyone knew about. Documented, not rumored, not made bigger than they were. Each one left behind in the same way, quietly, without closure. But here's the part no one saw. Between the flings and the failures, Brad was doing something else. He was collecting something, trying to recreate a feeling that had left him before any of this began. And no matter how many homes he bought, roles he played, or women he kissed, it never came back. Because it wasn't about the women, it was about the one he never got back. He didn't mean for it to become a cycle, but it did. Not all at once, not on purpose. It crept in quietly, the way certain habits do when the world gives you everything you want except what you actually need. After the one he loved disappeared from his life, something in him changed forever. At first, it looked like ambition. He threw himself into the roles, into the scenes, into the idea of being someone else over and over again. He was every man except himself, and people loved him for it. But underneath the rising fame was something colder, something unspoken. It wasn't that he was chasing women. It was that he didn't know how to stop being chased. He met her on a movie set. The next one over dinner. Another in an audition room. Each woman seemed different. Older, younger, confident, soft-spoken. But the endings were always the same. The spark, the passion, the photos, followed by the silence, the pulling away, the quiet retreat. People called these Hollywood romances, but it wasn't romantic. Not to him, because every time someone tried to get close, they were really reaching out for the fake image he had created. Not the man who hadn't called the love of his life back. Not the boy who still wondered if she waited. They loved the actor, but they didn't know the empty space inside him where someone else used to live. That's why he kept choosing women who never truly saw him, not the real him. And that's what made them safe. If they never saw the cracks, they'd never ask about them. And if they never asked, he'd never have to explain the truth. That he didn't know how to love someone if he wasn't pretending. He wasn't heartless. He tried. He wanted it to work with the ones who laughed too loud, who kissed him like they meant it, who stayed even when he pushed. But the closer they came, the more he felt her absence. It was like chasing a shape in the fog. You think it's real, but every time you get near, it vanishes. He had trapped himself in a cycle trying to copy a feeling that only one woman had ever given him. Even though he never admitted that to anyone. Not then. But if we are talking about heartbreaks, then what happened with Angelina Jolie was one of the greatest he had ever had to go through. Brad had built a life around acting, but nothing prepared him for the public breakdown of his private failures. After years of being Hollywood's most wanted man, the fall didn't come with a bad movie or forgotten role. It came from the skies. September 14, 2016. There was a private flight from France to Los Angeles. On board were Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, their 6 children, and the weight of years that had finally broken apart. The details weren't immediately public. What came first was silence. Then a sudden announcement. Angelina had filed for divorce. The timing was fast. The filing came just 5 days after the plane landed. She asked for sole custody of the children. The timing wasn't a coincidence, it was planned. It didn't take long for headlines to fill in the blanks. An anonymous tip to Child Protective Services, an internal FBI investigation, rumors of alcohol, reports of a fight between Pitt and Maddox, their oldest son. No criminal charges were ever filed. The FBI closed the case, but the damage had already spread. Public opinion doesn't wait for verdicts. It forms its own. In the months that followed, Brad Pitt didn't deny that something happened. In fact, he admitted more than most expected. He confessed to years of drinking, to using alcohol as a way to handle pain, silence, and shame. In an interview with GQ, he said he had been drinking every day, that he was good at cutting himself off from people, that he didn't want to live like that anymore. What happened on that plane wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of facing the truth. For the first time, Brad Pitt wasn't the hero in the story. He wasn't the misunderstood artist or the charming rebel. He was a father who had lost access to his children. A man under fire from public opinion and the law. Custody wasn't just a legal battle. It was a slow, embarrassing process. At one point, he had supervised visits only. He wasn't even allowed to sleep in the same house as his kids. The court documents revealed more than the public ever saw. Jolie accused him of having a history of physical abuse toward the children. Her legal team said that Pitt choked one of the children and hit another in the face. Pitt's team denied the claims. The truth remained tangled in sealed files and different stories, but the effect couldn't be undone. Jolie, once his partner, had become his enemy. Their shared dream of building a global family had collapsed under accusations and a blame game. Even years later, the case was not fully closed. In 2021, Pitt won a temporary victory. A judge granted him joint custody, but it was quickly overturned after Jolie's lawyers succeeded in having the judge removed for failing to reveal prior business ties to Pitt's legal team. Since then, the custody battle has dragged on, largely behind closed doors with no final resolution in sight. As of 2025, Pitt does not have full custody of any of the children. The emotional cost is harder to measure. In interviews, Pitt has avoided direct confrontation. He doesn't speak Jolie's name often, but when he talks about being a father, there's a change. Less confidence, more hesitation. He once said, "You have to understand when you're trying to piece together your life again, your kids see it." He knew they were watching. Not just the actor on screen, but the man off it. And for a while, he had become someone they couldn't look up to. The incident also changed the way he was seen. Not just in films, but in the public imagination. He was no longer the golden boy. He was a complicated man, the one who had it all and lost what mattered. The press softened eventually, but the audience never fully forgot. And neither did the children. In private, Pitt sought therapy. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous. He spoke about facing his emotional limitations, about learning to accept blame without falling apart from shame. He began sculpting. Long nights alone in his art studio, creating forms from stone and metal. A man who had spent a lifetime being looked at was now trying to find shape in silence. It wasn't a comeback. It was a surrender. But even as he healed, one part of the story never resurfaced. The woman from before, the one from the start, the one who had known him before the weight of everything. He didn't call her name. He didn't chase closure. Maybe because it wasn't hers to give, or maybe because losing custody of his children was the final punishment for every goodbye he had left unanswered. Her name was never revealed, but it was confirmed that she was a Methodist preacher's daughter, not an actress, not a model. She was known to call him out for his big dreams. So bluntly. He was just starting out fresh from the University of Missouri, a journalism student who had dropped everything to head west with $325 in his pocket and a beat-up car. She was the first person who took him seriously, not because of his face, but because of how he spoke about film. They were never photographed together. There are no red carpet images, no tabloid clippings, no grainy footage, only stories told by old classmates, local radio hosts, and a single interview in 2007 where he talked about her so fondly. He even said that she wasn't that into me. And he even told everyone that she used to call him out for his romantic ideas. Their relationship was brief, no more than 18 months, scattered between Springfield and L.A. But the ending was quiet and final. She didn't follow him west. She stayed in Missouri, later working in community theater, then going into nonprofit work. She got married and had children. She never gave interviews, never claimed his name. But those who knew Brad in the early 90s say she was the girl, the one his friends teased him about when he got famous, the one he never fully explained. Not because it was scandalous, but because it mattered too much. When the fame came, so did the detachment. But her presence marked a time when he was still reachable. As the years passed, her name disappeared. Not from memory, but from relevance. Pitt dated many women after her. The list grew, but none of them were her. She was the only one who wasn't attracted to what he became. She was drawn to what he wanted to be. In 2017, a small Missouri podcast tracked her down. She declined the interview, only saying off record, it was never supposed to be public. That was the whole point. He was just Brad. Just Brad. That same year, Pitt entered rehab, began making sculptures. Friends said he started looking through his early journals, rereading old letters. One of them reportedly included a page written to her that he never sent. He might have thought of returning to her, but by then it was too late. Rumors say that she passed away in 2015. She died quietly without any headlines. Pitt didn't attend the funeral. He likely didn't know. It was only in 2018 that he learned of her death through a mutual college friend they had both lost contact with. Sources close to him say he didn't speak for a day, that he took a long drive alone and didn't return until after midnight. He never made a public statement. But something changed that year. He sold several properties. He restructured his production company. He stopped chasing roles and started producing films that didn't center him. He took roles that let others shine. When asked about it in an interview, he simply said, "I want to be useful, not just visible." Today, his relationship with his children remains difficult. The idea of family, the one he once built, is long gone. He now spends hours in his art studio making sculptures, some as tall as 10 feet. Most go unseen. When asked what they represent, he said, "They're what's left. The forms of everything I didn't say when I should have." For decades, Brad Pitt's life played out on global stages. But the real story wasn't about movies or even marriages. It was about timing. He was loved deeply before he ever knew how to receive it. And by the time he learned, it was gone. The woman from the beginning never wrote a tell-all, never asked for money, never left behind a scandal. But her absence created a silence so loud it filled the cracks of everything that followed. And in that silence, Brad Pitt finally found a version of himself he could live with. Not adored, not flawless, not forgiven, but honest and alone.